The encounter. The bustling space station was alive with noise and chaos. Bright neon signs flashed alien symbols, and the air buzzed with the hum of interstellar ships coming and going. Among the crowd, humans and aliens walked, talked, and haggled over strange items. No one paid attention to the man sitting quietly near the station's edge. He had no legs. Marcus sat in his hover chair, staring at the endless sea of people passing by. His once strong frame was now thin and tired. His military uniform, though old, still held the badges of honor he had earned in the Galactic War. But here, in this endless crowd, no one cared about heroes. He sighed, shifting uncomfortably. The credits he earned from selling small gadgets barely kept him alive. The war had taken his legs, his pride, and his purpose. Every day felt the same, silent, lonely, and hopeless. Then, something changed. Among the crowd, a figure stopped. It wasn't just anyone. It was a tall alien woman, her presence demanding attention. Her skin shimmered like silver under the neon lights, and her eyes glowed faintly, as if holding secrets of the universe. She was dressed in fine robes adorned with gemstones that seemed to move like liquid. Marcus noticed her immediately, but he assumed she would walk on like everyone else. Instead, she turned her glowing eyes toward him and stepped closer. "You are human," she said, her voice smooth and melodic, yet holding an air of authority. Marcus blinked, unsure how to respond. Yeah. Last time I checked." The alien tilted her head, studying him like a puzzle. "And yet, you are here, alone, in this place. Why?" Marcus frowned. "What's it to you?" She didn't flinch at his tone. Instead, she crouched down, bringing herself to his eye level. It was a strange sight, this regal, wealthy alien lowering herself to speak with a broken human. "I see many things," she said softly. "But you are not like the others." Marcus let out a dry laugh. "No legs kinda does that." Her eyes narrowed slightly, but there was no pity in them, only curiosity. "Your legs may be gone, but your spirit is not. I can feel it. You have known pain, loss, and yet you still exist." Marcus shifted uncomfortably under her intense gaze. "Look, lady, I don't know what you're getting at, but I'm just trying to get by here." She smiled faintly, standing up again. "Getting by? Is that all you wish for?" Marcus hesitated. The truth was, he wanted more. He wanted to feel whole again, to walk, to live without being treated like a burden. But life had taught him not to hope for too much. "What I wish for doesn't matter," he said, looking away. The alien woman didn't respond immediately. Instead, she reached into a small pouch and pulled out a shining metal coin. She placed it on the small table next to Marcus's hover chair. "For dinner," she said, "join me at the HFY Sci-Fi Cafe in 1 hour. It's just down the corridor." Marcus stared at the coin, then back at her. "Why?" She smiled again, this time with a hint of mystery. "Because I believe in second chances, and you look like someone who needs one." Before he could protest, she turned and disappeared into the crowd. Marcus sat there, staring at the coin. It was far more valuable than anything he had earned in months. He could sell it and survive for weeks. But the way she had spoken to him, it stirred something deep inside him. Curiosity. Who was she? Why did she care? And what did she mean by second chances? 1 hour later, Marcus found himself nervously wheeling his hover chair into the HFY Sci-Fi Cafe. It was a high-end place, far beyond what he could normally afford. The air smelled of exotic spices, and soft alien music played in the background. She was already there, sitting at a corner table. When she saw him, she waved him over, her glowing eyes warm and inviting. Marcus hesitated for a moment, then made his way to the table. As he approached, she stood and extended a hand. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I am Elira." He shook her hand, her grip surprisingly firm. "Marcus," he replied. Elira gestured for him to sit, and as he settled into his spot, she leaned forward slightly. "Tell me, Marcus," she said, her voice soft but filled with purpose. "What would you do if you had a chance to change everything?" Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Marcus didn't know how to respond, but deep down, he felt it. The start of something extraordinary. The offer. The cafe was dimly lit, with soft blue lights running along the walls like flowing rivers. Alien plants glowed faintly in the corners, their bioluminescence adding an otherworldly charm to the place. Marcus sat across from Elira, feeling out of place among the wealthy patrons. His hover chair hummed quietly beneath him, a sharp contrast to the elegant seating around him. Elira sat with poise, sipping a golden liquid from a delicate crystal glass. Her silver skin shimmered faintly in the low light, and the air around her carried a quiet weight. Marcus could tell she wasn't just wealthy. She held power. The kind of power that made others bow their heads without being told. Marcus shifted in his seat, his discomfort growing. "So," he started, breaking the silence, "what exactly is this about? You don't seem like someone who invites random people to expensive dinners." Elira's glowing eyes met his, calm and unreadable. "You are not random." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "I sure feel like it." She set her glass down gently, the sound barely audible. "You survived the galactic war," she said. "Many humans didn't. Fewer still returned without legs, and yet here you are." Marcus tensed. He didn't like talking about the war. It was behind him, or at least that's what he told himself. "I got lucky," he muttered, looking away. Elira tilted her head slightly. "I don't believe in luck. I believe in fate, and in opportunity." Marcus let out a dry chuckle. "Fate. I lost my legs, Elira. Doesn't feel like fate's been too kind to me." Her eyes softened, and for the first time, Marcus thought he saw something beneath her calm exterior. Understanding. "Fate is not about kindness," she replied. "It is about paths crossing at the right moment." Marcus frowned, rubbing the edge of the table with his thumb. "All right, let's say I believe in fate for a second. What path are we talking about?" Elira leaned forward slightly, her voice lowering. "I need a partner." Marcus blinked. "A partner?" "Yes," she said simply. He laughed, shaking his head. "Look, I appreciate the dinner, but I'm not exactly partner material. I'm just a guy in a hover chair." Elira didn't laugh. "Your physical form is not important. What I need is trust. Someone who can stand beside me when others would turn away." Marcus frowned, sensing there was more beneath her words. "Trust is earned," he said carefully. Her gaze didn't waver. "Exactly." A long silence stretched between them. Marcus could hear the quiet hum of distant conversations, but they felt far away. Elira's eyes seemed to pierce through him, like she was searching for something hidden. Finally, she reached into her robe and pulled out a small, sleek device. It looked like a thin slab of obsidian, with glowing runes running along the edges. She placed it on the table and slid it toward him. "What's this?" Marcus asked, eyeing it warily. "A contract," Elira said. "If you agree, everything will change." Marcus hesitated. "Change how?" Elira's expression remained calm, but her eyes held a spark of something deeper, anticipation. "You will walk again," she said softly, "not with ordinary prosthetics, with technology far beyond anything your people have ever seen." Marcus froze. His heart raced, and for a moment, he forgot to breathe. "Walk again." The words echoed in his mind, louder than the noise around him. "You're serious," he said quietly. "I am." Marcus's hand hovered over the device, but doubt crept in. "And what do you get out of this?" Elira smiled faintly. "A partner who owes me his life." There it was. The catch. Marcus pulled his hand back slightly. "So I signed this, and suddenly I'm in your debt. Sounds like a dangerous deal." Elira's gaze didn't waver. "All great opportunities come with risk. But consider this. What do you have to lose?" Marcus opened his mouth to argue but stopped. She was right. What did he have to lose? He had no family, no future, and no legs. The war had stripped everything from him, leaving him in the shadows of a world that had moved on without him. He stared at the device, his reflection faintly visible on its polished surface. Walk again. The thought wouldn't leave him. Marcus took a deep breath, his fingers brushing against the edge of the contract. And if I say no? Elira leaned back, folding her hands calmly. Then you leave, and this conversation never happened. Her words were simple, but Marcus felt the weight behind them. This wasn't just a dinner invitation. It was a crossroad. He could leave and continue surviving, or he could take a chance and see where this strange path led. His hand hovered for a moment longer. Then he pressed his thumb against the device. A faint glow pulsed beneath his skin as the contract sealed itself with a soft chime. Elira smiled, though this time there was a knowing glint in her eyes. Welcome, Marcus, she said softly. Your new life begins now. Marcus wasn't sure if he felt excitement or dread, but one thing was certain, there was no turning back. A risky agreement. The air felt heavier the moment Marcus signed the contract. The glowing runes on the device flickered, then faded into nothing, as if the agreement now existed somewhere beyond the physical world. Marcus expected some grand gesture, lights, a flash of power, maybe even a dramatic announcement. Instead, Elira calmly picked up the device, tucked it away beneath her robe, and resumed sipping her drink like nothing had happened. Marcus stared at her, confused. That's it? No, I don't know, secret ceremony or something. Elira's lips curled slightly, just enough to suggest amusement. The ceremony has already begun, Marcus. You just haven't felt it yet. Marcus narrowed his eyes. What does that even mean? Before Elira could respond, a soft chime echoed through the cafe. The elegant silver bracelet on her wrist flickered with light. She glanced at it briefly. Our time here is over, she said, rising gracefully. Follow me. Marcus hesitated. He wasn't used to following anyone, but curiosity, and the promise of walking again, kept him moving. His hover chair whirred softly as he rolled after her, weaving through the polished floors of the cafe. Patrons glanced at them, their eyes lingering on Elira longer than Marcus. She didn't seem to notice, or maybe she was just used to it. They stepped out into the station's corridor, where the steady hum of passing crowds returned. Elira led him down a side path, far from the bustling main street. The lights here were dimmer, and the air carried a faint metallic tang. Marcus frowned. This doesn't look like a high-end clinic to me. Elira glanced back, her glowing eyes catching the faint light. It's not. What you need cannot be found in a clinic. Marcus's grip tightened on the chair's controls. Okay, now you're just being vague for fun. She didn't answer. They stopped outside a small, inconspicuous door. Elira pressed her palm against a scanner, and the metal door hissed open. Beyond it lay a narrow hallway bathed in a faint golden light. Come, Elira said, stepping inside. Marcus hesitated. His instincts screamed at him to turn around. This felt too strange, too sudden. But his legs, the thought of walking again, pushed him forward. He followed her into the hallway. The door sealed shut behind them. The room they entered wasn't what Marcus expected. It was spacious, lined with smooth metal walls that pulsed with faint, vein-like patterns of energy. A large circular platform sat in the center, surrounded by alien machinery that hummed softly. Strange symbols floated in the air, shifting like mist. Elira gestured to the platform. Sit there. Marcus wheeled himself closer, eyeing the machinery. I feel like I should ask more questions. You can, Elira replied, pressing buttons on a nearby console. But some answers will only make sense afterward. Marcus exhaled sharply. That's comforting. Still, he moved onto the platform, locking his hover chair in place. Elira circled him, her fingertips grazing the air as if interacting with invisible controls. What exactly is this going to do? Marcus asked, his voice more cautious now. Elira's gaze softened as she stopped in front of him. This will reshape your body, Marcus. The technology is ancient, older than my people. It doesn't just replace what was lost. It makes you more. More. Marcus echoed. I didn't sign up for more. I just want my legs back. Elira crouched, meeting his eyes at his level. You misunderstand. To walk again, you cannot simply return to who you were. This will make you stronger, faster. Your body will adapt, but it will change. Marcus stared at her, trying to gauge if this was some elaborate trick. But her expression was sincere, calm, but sincere. What kind of changes? He pressed. She hesitated briefly. Your legs will be crafted from a blend of organic matter and energy, stronger than steel, but they will not feel like the legs you remember. Marcus's chest tightened. He hadn't considered that. So, I won't feel normal. Elira's voice softened. What is normal, Marcus? A chance to stand, to run. Would that not be enough? Marcus looked away. He wanted to argue, but deep down, he knew she was right. Finally, he nodded. All right. Do it. Elira smiled faintly, standing again. You are braver than you realize. The platform lit up, casting a golden glow beneath Marcus. His chair shifted slightly, lowering him onto the surface. A soft vibration hummed beneath him, growing stronger as the machinery activated. Marcus gripped the edges of the platform. Is this going to hurt? Elira's voice drifted from the console. A little. Before Marcus could respond, the air around him pulsed. A sharp jolt ran through his body, starting at his spine and spreading downward. He clenched his jaw, feeling heat flood through his lower half. For the first time in years, he felt something where his legs should have been. His eyes widened. I can feel. A surge of energy cut him off. His vision blurred, colors twisting and melting together. The sensation in his legs grew stronger, like they were being woven from pure light. The pain faded, replaced by a strange warmth. When the light dimmed, Marcus slowly opened his eyes. He looked down. 2 legs, sleek, shimmering with faint veins of glowing energy, extended from his hips. They looked almost human, but beneath the surface, something alien pulsed. Marcus shifted, lifting one leg experimentally. It responded instantly, fluid and smooth. He stood. His breath caught as he took his first step in years. Elira watched from a distance, her expression unreadable. How do they feel? She asked quietly. Marcus flexed his new legs, feeling strength ripple beneath the surface. Different, he admitted. But I can walk. Elira's eyes met his, and for the first time, Marcus thought he saw something else in them. Expectation. And he wondered what exactly he had just become. Transformation and secrets. Marcus couldn't stop staring at his legs. The smooth, sleek surface glowed faintly under the lights of Elira's chamber. Every step he took echoed softly, his movements precise and unnaturally fluid. The legs felt real, too real. If he didn't know better, he'd swear they were flesh and bone. But they weren't. He flexed his toes, watching the way the energy beneath his skin shimmered with each motion. The sensation was strange, like walking on air and solid ground at the same time. A mix of strength and weightlessness. Elira circled him slowly, her eyes tracking every movement. She didn't speak right away, letting the silence settle between them. Marcus finally broke it. I don't feel human. Elira's gaze lifted to meet his. Because you're not. Not entirely. He frowned. That's not exactly reassuring. She stopped in front of him, her expression calm but distant. Marcus, the body adapts. It forgets pain and learns new sensations. In time, these legs will feel as natural as the ones you lost. Marcus wasn't sure how to feel about that. The war had already taken his humanity piece by piece. Now, even his legs weren't his own. He took another step forward. This time, faster. His balance shifted effortlessly, as if the legs anticipated his movement. It felt good. Too good. He could already tell this wasn't normal. "These aren't just prosthetics, are they?" Marcus asked, narrowing his eyes. Elira smiled faintly. "No." Marcus exhaled sharply. "Yeah, I figured." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "They are more than technology. They are bonded to me." Marcus blinked. "What?" Elira's hand hovered near his knee. As her fingers approached, the faint glow under his skin intensified, responding to her presence. Marcus felt the connection, like a thread pulling at his very core. "They are linked to my energy," Elira explained. "As long as I live, they will function perfectly. But if I die—" Marcus's stomach dropped. "Hold on, you're saying if something happens to you, I lose these legs?" Elira nodded. "Yes, and more than that." Marcus took a step back, suddenly feeling less stable. "You didn't mention that part when I signed." She met his gaze, unflinching. "Because if I had, you wouldn't have agreed." Marcus clenched his fists. "Damn right I wouldn't." Elira's eyes softened. "You wouldn't have trusted me yet, but trust is earned, Marcus, and I will earn yours." He wanted to argue, to demand she undo whatever she had done, but the truth lingered in his mind. He could walk again. Wasn't that enough? Marcus sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "So, what now? Am I supposed to be your bodyguard or something?" Elira's lips twitched into a small smile. "In a way. But not just a bodyguard. A partner." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Right. And what exactly am I partnering in?" Her expression darkened slightly, and she turned toward the door. "Follow me." The corridor outside Elira's chamber led to another part of the station Marcus hadn't seen before. It was quieter, the walls lined with symbols that pulsed faintly under their steps. Marcus kept pace beside her, the sensation of walking still strange and exhilarating. Finally, Elira stopped at a large window overlooking the outer docking bays. Ships floated like massive beasts against the black void of space, their engines glowing faintly. Elira stared out in silence for a long moment before speaking. "There are people who want me dead, Marcus." Marcus crossed his arms. "I gathered that from the whole. If I die, you die deal." She turned her gaze toward him, her eyes flickering with faint light. "I am not just wealthy, Marcus. I am royal." Marcus's brows lifted. "Royal? As in, Space Queen?" Elira chuckled softly. "Not quite, but close enough." Marcus rubbed his face, letting out a low groan. "Great, I signed up to be tied to space royalty. That's just perfect." Her smile faded. "My position comes with enemies. I am the last of my house, and there are those who believe I shouldn't exist." Marcus's amusement faded. "Last of your house?" She nodded. "My family was killed years ago by rivals. I survived by hiding. But hiding has its limits. Now, I need to reclaim what was lost. And for that, I need someone at my side." Marcus stared at her, processing everything. "And you chose me. A legless human with nothing to lose." Elira's eyes softened. "Precisely. You have nothing to lose, and everything to gain." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "So what exactly does this partnership involve?" Elira stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You will protect me. Fight beside me. And in return, I will give you power beyond what you thought possible." Marcus narrowed his eyes. "Power?" Elira smiled faintly. "These legs are just the beginning." Marcus looked down at his glowing limbs, uncertainty swirling in his chest. He had walked into this for one reason, to stand on his own 2 feet again. But now it felt like he had stepped into something far more dangerous. And somehow he wasn't sure he wanted to step out. The truth revealed. Marcus stood at the edge of the observation window, his new legs humming faintly beneath him. Outside, the vastness of space stretched endlessly, but Marcus's mind was elsewhere, focused on Elira's words. Royalty. He had unknowingly signed a contract with space royalty. Elira stood a few feet away, watching him carefully, as if measuring his reaction. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. "So let me get this straight," he said, turning toward her. "Not only are you some kind of royal, but your whole family was wiped out. And now, I'm bonded to you." Elira's glowing eyes didn't waver. "Yes, that is the truth." Marcus scoffed, shaking his head. "And what? I'm supposed to be your bodyguard now? Some kind of royal escort?" Elira took a step closer. "You misunderstand. This bond is not just about protection. It makes you part of me, Marcus. In the eyes of galactic law, you are now considered." Marcus held up his hand. "Let me guess. A prince." Elira's lips curved slightly. "Not quite, but close enough to make enemies." Marcus rubbed his face. "Fantastic." The weight of her words settled on him. He had barely gotten used to walking again, and now he was entangled in alien politics. Marcus wasn't sure if he should laugh or punch the nearest wall. "You could have told me this before I signed," Marcus muttered, pacing slowly across the room. His legs moved smoothly, each step firm and controlled, but his mind buzzed with frustration. Elira's gaze followed him. "Would it have changed your decision?" Marcus paused. He wanted to say yes, that any sane person would have run the moment royalty and assassins were involved. But deep down, he knew better. His legs. He wasn't ready to give them up. Marcus sighed, leaning against the window. "I don't know. Maybe." Elira stepped beside him, her voice soft but steady. "I chose you because you've already fought battles most people wouldn't survive. You endured the war. You lost your legs, but you didn't lose your will to live. That's rare, Marcus." Marcus let her words sink in, but something still didn't sit right. "You could have found someone better, someone stronger." Elira turned to him, her glowing eyes meeting his directly. "Strength isn't just about muscle. Sometimes it's about knowing how to survive when the odds are against you. And that's exactly what I need." Marcus met her gaze for a long moment. He wanted to argue, but the truth gnawed at him. She wasn't wrong. He had survived the worst the galaxy had thrown at him. But surviving and winning were two different things. "All right," Marcus finally said, crossing his arms. "So what now? You've got your partner. What's the next step?" Elira's expression darkened slightly. "Now, I need to show you why I chose you." The corridor Elira led him down felt colder than the rest of the station. The walls pulsed faintly with energy, but the air carried a strange weight Marcus couldn't explain. As they approached a sealed door, Elira pressed her palm against the scanner. The door hissed open, revealing a hidden chamber filled with floating holograms and shifting displays. The room's centerpiece was a large, circular platform, much like the one Marcus had stood on during his transformation. In the center of the platform stood a holographic projection of a galaxy, its stars flickering like tiny embers. But Marcus noticed something strange. Several parts of the galaxy glowed red, like wounds bleeding across space. Elira gestured toward the projection. "This is the real reason you're here." Marcus stepped closer, eyeing the red zones. "What am I looking at?" "Territory under siege," Elira replied quietly. "The red zones belong to the House of Warner, one of the factions responsible for my family's death." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "Let me guess. They're coming for you next." Elira nodded. "Yes, and they won't stop until every trace of my lineage is erased." Marcus exhaled slowly, running a hand over his face. "And here I thought retirement would be quiet." Elira smirked faintly. "I'm afraid quiet isn't an option anymore." Marcus studied the projection again, noting how the red zones were slowly creeping toward a golden star. "This star, what is it?" Elira's gaze lingered on the star. "It's my homeworld, the last stronghold of my people. If Warner's forces reach it, everything I stand for will be gone." Marcus frowned. and I'm supposed to help stop that. Elira turned to him, her expression unreadable. You are more important than you realize, Marcus. The bond between us isn't just symbolic. As long as you're by my side, my enemies cannot touch me directly. Galactic law forbids harming a bonded partner of royal blood. To attack me is to declare war on every neutral faction. Marcus's jaw tightened. So, I'm your shield. In a sense, yes, Elira said softly. But this bond works both ways. If you fall, I fall. Marcus crossed his arms. Great. No pressure. Elira's gaze softened. I know this is a lot to take in, but you won't face this alone. I promise you that. Marcus studied her for a moment longer before stepping back from the projection. Fine. But if I'm doing this, I want answers. No more half-truths. Deal. Elira held out her hand. Deal. Marcus shook it, feeling the faint hum of energy pulse through his arm. Whatever he had gotten himself into, there was no turning back now. And part of him was okay with that. The escape and betrayal. The weight of Elira's words clung to Marcus like the cold air in the corridor. His legs moved silently beside her as they left the hidden chamber behind. But his thoughts were far from the polished floors and humming lights of the space station. I'm her shield. Marcus didn't like the sound of that. He flexed his new legs as they walked, feeling the subtle strength beneath the artificial skin. They responded perfectly to his movements, yet the constant glow reminded him, these weren't his. They were a gift, but also a chain. Elira's life was tied to his, and now his survival depended on her enemies staying in the shadows. Marcus. Elira's voice pulled him from his thoughts. He looked over at her. Yeah? You're thinking too much. Marcus smirked faintly. It's kind of hard not to. Yesterday I was broke and legless. Now I'm apparently bonded to a space princess with enemies who want me dead. Forgive me if I'm a little overwhelmed. Elira gave a soft chuckle. Fair enough. But worrying won't change anything. We move forward, one step at a time. Funny, Marcus muttered. That's exactly what I said after losing my legs. Elira glanced at him, curiosity flickering in her glowing eyes. And now you have them back. Marcus flexed his toes inside the synthetic skin. Yeah, thanks for that, by the way. Even if I wasn't exactly briefed on the whole Royal Death Pact part. Elira smiled faintly. Details. Marcus shook his head. You've got a twisted sense of humor. Before Elira could respond, the corridor lights flickered. Marcus's instincts flared. He slowed his pace, his eyes darting around the empty hallway. That normal? Elira's expression tightened. No. Another flicker. This time, the faint hum of the station's engines wavered. Elira raised her wrist, tapping the glowing bracelet she wore. A holographic display blinked to life, but instead of station diagnostics, the screen filled with static. Marcus's gut twisted. I've seen enough war zones to know when things are about to go south. Elira's gaze sharpened. Stay close to me. Marcus was already moving, keeping pace as Elira quickened her steps. They turned down another corridor, but Marcus felt it, the shift in the air. Something wasn't right. Marcus, Elira said quietly. He didn't need to ask. He saw it too. A figure stood at the far end of the hallway, partially obscured by the shadows. Marcus slowed, his eyes narrowing. Friend of yours? He asked, his voice low. Elira didn't answer immediately. No. The figure stepped forward, and Marcus's breath caught slightly. It was an alien, tall and broad, with dark, ridged skin and glowing red eyes. A Vornar. Marcus's new legs tensed instinctively, and he stepped in front of Elira. I'm guessing we don't invite him to dinner. The Vornar alien didn't speak. He simply stared at Elira, his eyes burning with quiet intensity. Elira's voice was calm, but Marcus could feel the tension beneath her words. We're leaving. The Vornar's head tilted slightly, but he didn't move. Marcus's fingers curled into fists. If he doesn't step aside, I'm going to test how fast these legs are. Elira exhaled softly. Not yet. They began walking again, but as they passed, the Vorner's deep, guttural voice echoed down the hall. Running will not save you, princess. Marcus stopped in his tracks. He turned slightly, meeting the alien's glowing red eyes. She's not running, Marcus said. She's just got better places to be. The Vorner's gaze shifted to him, and for a long, uncomfortable moment, Marcus felt the weight of it. Then the alien smiled faintly. Enjoy your legs while you can, human. Marcus clenched his jaw, but Elira placed a hand on his arm, gently guiding him forward. As they walked away, Marcus kept his voice low. So, they know I exist now. That's fun. Elira nodded. Yes, and they won't stop watching. Great. Love that. They made it back to Elira's private quarters without further interruptions, but Marcus felt like the Vorner's eyes were still on him. Elira moved to the far end of the room, activating a series of protective barriers that shimmered faintly along the walls. Marcus leaned against the wall, crossing his arms. You knew they were on the station, didn't you? Elira hesitated before answering. I suspected. Marcus let out a dry laugh. Suspected? You really know how to leave out the important parts. Elira turned to him, her gaze steady. I didn't want to alarm you. Marcus, this path is dangerous. I told you there would be risk. Marcus pushed off the wall, pacing slowly. Yeah, but you didn't say the risk would come knocking an hour after signing your fancy contract. Elira's eyes softened. I didn't expect them to move so quickly. Marcus stopped, meeting her gaze. And why do I get the feeling that wasn't the whole truth either? Elira hesitated, and for the first time, Marcus saw something flicker in her expression. Uncertainty. Finally, she sighed. The Vornar aren't just hunting me. There's more at stake than my title, Marcus. If they capture me, they won't just kill me. They'll take the bond. Marcus frowned. The bond. What does that mean? Elira's voice dropped lower. If they sever it, they can take what's left of my power. And yours. Marcus's eyes narrowed. You didn't mention that part. I didn't think I needed to. Marcus exhaled slowly, running a hand down his face. Of course not. The bond wasn't just a chain. It was a target. And Marcus had just painted a bullseye on his back. The final choice. Marcus sat on the edge of Elira's private quarters, staring at his glowing legs. The faint hum of alien technology coursed beneath his skin, but his mind wasn't on the marvel of walking again. It was on the Vorner's words. Enjoy your legs while you can, human. Elira moved quietly across the room, adjusting the holographic security displays that shimmered against the walls. Each movement she made was graceful, controlled. Marcus envied that. His heart still hammered from their encounter in the corridor, and the weight of what she'd told him moments ago pressed down like a vice. If they sever the bond, they take her power, and mine. So let me get this straight, Marcus said, breaking the silence. His voice came out sharper than he intended. Not only am I tied to your life, but now I'm carrying around a prize that every Vornar assassin wants. Elira glanced at him over her shoulder. Yes. Marcus let out a dry laugh, rubbing his temples. Great. Perfect. I really know how to pick my contracts. Elira turned fully, stepping closer. The soft glow from the room reflected off her silver skin, giving her an almost ethereal appearance. You don't regret it. Marcus met her gaze. I didn't say that. You wouldn't have walked away, even if you knew everything from the start, she said, her voice calm but firm. Marcus hated how right she was. He exhaled, leaning back against the wall. Maybe. But you could have warned me that signing this contract painted a target on my back. Elira's gaze softened. I had no other choice. Marcus narrowed his eyes. There's always a choice. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Elira lowered her gaze. Not for me. Marcus watched her carefully. She looked tired, more than she had since they met. It was subtle, but the weight she carried was beginning to show. He shifted forward, resting his arms on his knees. "You keep saying that, but I'm starting to think you're not telling me everything." Elira hesitated. Then she walked to the large observation window and stared out at the stars. "My family's death wasn't an accident, Marcus." His eyes narrowed. "You said it was a rival house." Elira nodded. "It was. But there's more. The Vorner didn't just want power. They wanted something only my bloodline could give them." Marcus straightened. "The bond." She glanced back at him. "Yes. Our lineage carries ancient energy, energy that can reshape entire worlds if wielded correctly. My family's connection to that energy is why the Vorner destroyed us. I am the last, Marcus. If they take me, they take control of that power." Marcus processed that in silence. "So," he said carefully, "you bonded that power to me." Elira nodded. "It's the only way to keep it safe. As long as you live, they cannot claim it." Marcus felt the weight of those words settle in his chest. It wasn't just his life on the line. It was something much larger. He rubbed his hands together, staring at the floor. "You really trust me with something that big?" Elira stepped closer, her voice quiet but certain. "Yes." Marcus chuckled under his breath. "You're insane." "Perhaps," Elira replied with a faint smile. Marcus sighed, shaking his head. "All right. What now?" Before Elira could answer, the station's emergency lights flickered red. A sharp alarm blared through the quarters, echoing down the corridor. Marcus stood immediately, his new legs responding with flawless speed. He glanced at Elira. "Let me guess. That's not a drill." Elira's eyes glowed faintly as she checked the holographic display hovering above her bracelet. Her face hardened. "They're here." Marcus frowned. "The Vorner?" She nodded, her voice calm but urgent. "3 ships just docked without clearance. Security forces are already engaged, but—" She trailed off. Marcus stepped closer. "But what?" Elira's gaze lifted to meet his. "They're coming for me. For us." Marcus flexed his hands, feeling the faint hum of energy beneath his artificial legs. "Then we don't let them take you." Elira's eyes narrowed slightly. "You're certain?" Marcus smirked. "I didn't come this far to let them take everything now. Let's go." Elira's gaze lingered on him for a moment longer before she nodded. "Follow me." The station's corridors were alive with chaos. Red warning lights flashed overhead, and distant explosions rattled the walls. Marcus and Elira moved quickly, her pace matching his without hesitation. As they turned a corner, Marcus caught sight of 2 Vornar soldiers ahead, tall, armored figures with heavy rifles slung across their backs. They hadn't seen them yet. Marcus instinctively pressed Elira against the wall, shielding her with his arm. "Let me handle this." Elira raised an eyebrow. "You're unarmed." Marcus smirked. "I've got these." He tapped his legs. Before Elira could protest, Marcus lunged forward. His new legs carried him faster than he expected. In 2 strides, he was already behind the first soldier. Marcus grabbed the Vornar by the shoulder, twisting him around and slamming him hard into the corridor wall. The second soldier spun, rifle raised, too slow. Marcus kicked forward, driving his foot into the alien's chest. The Vornar crashed backward, tumbling to the ground. Elira approached calmly as Marcus caught his breath. "Well done," she said, glancing at the unconscious soldiers. Marcus leaned against the wall. "Thanks. But I'm starting to think they're going to keep coming." Elira's eyes glowed softly. "They are. And we will keep stopping them." Marcus exhaled slowly, meeting her gaze. "I hope you know what you're doing, Elira." She smiled faintly. "So do I." And for the first time in years, Marcus felt something unfamiliar stirring inside him. Hope.